Jason, I'm assuming the pronunciation there, says, I have been studying things related to parts of speech. However, sometimes I find it hard to identify adverbs, determiners, and conjunctions. Could you give some light? Now, I think it's a little bit too in-depth to go over all of these and really explain clearly what a conjunction is, what a determiner is, what an adverb is, and how to identify them. That is actually the kind of stuff that you would want to take a full grammar course for, right? But what we can do maybe is talk about how to identify parts of speech or elements of a sentence in general. That's actually the most useful skill. If you can sort of pick out the grammatical pieces, if you know how to at least identify something interesting is going on here, then you can start to name things if you want to. Do you have to be able to name things, to label things? That's a conjunction. That's a determiner. Well, it's up to you and it depends on how you study, but I will just say this. If you went up to 98% of native English speakers and said, point out in this sentence the determiner, they would not be able to answer that question. But if you ask them to make a sentence correctly, they would be able to give you a correct sentence. So that tells you what's more important. Is it more important to be able to label sentences and to be able to define different parts of speech? Or is it more important to be able to make sentences correctly, speak naturally, and use correct grammar, however it's labeled? Well, the second one, of course, because that's the goal. If you focus too much on the first one and you lose sight of the second, then you say, I'm an expert on all the parts of speech. So just be careful about that. I'm a master of all the parts of speech. All right, great. Write a composition for me. Wait a second. Why is that so full of errors? That's not even good writing. I thought you were a master. Well, I've mastered all the parts of speech. And Jason, I'm not saying this about you. I don't know. Yes, but in service of what? If your end goal is the mastery of each individual part of speech and identifying all the grammatical pieces, but not being able to use language well, naturally, then you've kind of set the wrong goal, right? I know someone who is really good at knowing a bunch of obscure English words. That means words that are not very common, but actually can't speak English very well. Okay, if you find that interesting, but remember, your highest goal, if you're learning English, for most people, should be getting better at using English naturally. All right, so having said that, let's take the focus off of adverbs, determiners, and conjunctions, and think about the following sentence, okay? Think about this sentence. I was planning to go home once I finished with this stack. Someone's working on a stack of papers. I was planning to go home once I finished with this stack. Okay. Now let's just notice the pieces there. I was planning to go home. Ask yourself, does that stand by itself as a sentence? If I stop there, I was planning to go home. I was planning to go home, period. End of sentence. Yes. Okay, so that tells me that that's probably one unit. That might be something we call, do you know what that's called? It's called a clause. It's a clause that can stand by itself. Now, there are different types of clauses, but that is called a clause. It's a piece that can stand by itself. All right. Now, what about this other piece here? I was planning to go home once I finished with this stack. Let's take that other piece. Once I finished with this stack. Once I finished with this stack. Does that stand by itself as a sentence? Once I finished with this stack. Somehow it doesn't quite make sense. I need more context to say that I understand what's going on. So it's not a complete sentence by itself. Actually, that's a different type of clause. Okay, so we've kind of identified two pieces there. But what is that once doing there? Well, it's kind of linking something together. It's linking together this piece, which is kind of a complete sentence by itself, or could be, with this other part. I finished this, what was the sentence? I finished with this stack. This other part is being linked with this word. What is this word? Well, the word is a linking word. It's a word that creates links between parts of sentences. Are All right, now you could say, let's now name that kind of thing. All right, it's called a conjunction. Okay, so that's a conjunction. Does knowing that it's called a conjunction help you use it better and understand it better? I would say no. That doesn't mean you shouldn't learn it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't know what a conjunction is called and how to define it. It means that your focus should be first on analyzing this sentence and why it looks natural and how I can do the same thing, not which of these is a conjunction. But okay, that's a conjunction. But then you go further into it. Well, which type of conjunction is it? It's actually a type of conjunction called a subordinating conjunction. Is that important to know? Not really. But if we looked at the sentence, we could say, well, I can see that one part cannot stand by itself as a sentence and one part can. So subordinating, going under, one depends on the other. Okay, we could look at more sentences like that and understand kind of what a subordinating conjunction is. While we never say, I'm going to master subordinating conjunctions, and then I will have mastered that part of speech, conjunction. That's not what it's about. It's about being able to understand and make natural sounding sentences, right? So always keep in mind what your purpose is. And that's not even the whole picture. That's just one sentence. There's another type of sentence with something called coordinating conjunctions, which you might be more familiar with. And that would be using and, but, or, nor to put together two things which both could be sentences by themselves. All right, so it's a whole world. But I always recommend when you're learning grammar to go through the path of real examples, real usage, rather than learning first the parts of speech and then, oh, by the way, learn some examples. It really matters the way you learn because it can make an impact on how well then you can put sentences together yourself, which is ultimately the goal. Okay, thanks for the question. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe, of course, and also check out my full courses in the links in the description.